right, Jerry Mason, Kickin Lawyer, another Law Talk. Thank you guys for joining us again. As always, if you haven't, please like, follow, and subscribe to the content. We're available on all social media platforms, podcast platforms, Facebook, YouTube, etc. So please check us out. Also available on TikTok. On the podcast stuff, make sure you give it the channel a follow. I appreciate it. You know, we're not doing this for money. We're doing this just to entertain everybody. If you haven't already, please download N.A. the Band's album Inside My Head. It is available for free wherever you listen to music, on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, etc. They're good local guys. One of them's my son, so help them out. And then Michelle Allen is a longtime sponsor of our show. If you're going to buy, sell, rent, lease real estate, please give her a holler. Real nice lady in the area, and always been very supportive of the Kickin Lawyer. And, of course, Mason's High Octane Martial Arts is located in Covington and Millington, 2 locations. Been open 30 years. Visit masonsmartialarts.com for some specials we have going on. We're glad to get you guys set up to kick folks. And then the new endeavor that should be open in 2 weeks. I'm actually in the building now. Jam Books and Records is located off the square here in Covington, Tennessee. So you can check us out. Right now we're on social media. Hopefully that'll be a lot of fun to do. And then Josh will be glad to help you with your online branding, emails, website design, drone footage of you and your wife or whatever. Just visit masonitemarketing.com.
Oddly specific.
Well, you just did a wedding or something, I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, joining me today is Mr. Darrell LaRiviere. Did I say it right again?
You did.
I got it 2 times right. Yeah, and so we had his, and I can't say better half. I was thinking about that earlier. Like, you can't say you're the better half. That's like politically incorrect. So we have to go with she was your better half, right?
She's my better half specifically.
Exactly,
yes.
Exactly. So how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you today?
Good. I know you're a man of many talents. Josh was telling me how you've been in a band, and of course we talked about sort of briefly last time you were a detective. But I did want to start with, y'all were kind of talking about it before. I was kind of curious to hear about it, and we don't have to give the specifics you just discussed. But you had the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Expo this weekend. I think both of you went to. And what was your big takeaway over there, Josh?
It's MCFC. Everybody should go.
That's what I figured. I saw you and your wife look like you were dressed up pretty good there. Was that for the Piranha Room part, or was there something else?
Room. Yeah, she was hosting the Piranha Room with her friend Lauren, and
cool.
This is the second year now that they have done that, and so we dressed out for it to go. And I was hoping to shoot some video to kind of help them promote the Piranha Room, but the lighting in there wasn't that great, and so I kind of had to put that aside and just enjoyed the party itself. So
nice. Yeah. Were there any comic book vendors?
There was one.
Yeah. Well, I asked because look, you know, it was that one's a comic and fantasy, and I've been to it. I went to, I think you had a booth there, Josh, one year.
I have a booth most years.
That was one of the first ones. I say it's one of the first ones I went to. I think the first one I went to that you were at was at the glass building there.
That was MCFC.
So it was it?
Okay. Yeah, they used to have them there, and what happened was both MCFC and Mid-South Con both used to be at that venue, and then that hotel stopped allowing comic conventions to have their Comic-Cons there because I guess they didn't like the furries and the dressed up people coming in and out.
It confuses the normies.
Yeah.
Huh. I think it would make it more interesting if you're.
It's definitely interesting.
If you're a normie and then you go there.
You know, a lot of folks can't get their head around any of the concepts with Comic-Con because you got to think about the different fandoms that walk in there. Just when you think you understand what you're seeing, you know, somebody walks in with something that's just completely out of your ability to get your head around it. And if you don't have some kind of a scope of reference for it, it's a lot.
You know, one thing that's interesting about all those folks in that world, because obviously we host the Covington Comic-Con, is outside of that world, sometimes they're the shyest people. And then you get them in that world and they actually have more confidence than the normies that you say, you know, like they're willing to put it out there at the convention.
I think that's the attraction for a lot of the people that go to Comic-Cons. I think that they find their strength in getting that chance to kind of become somebody else. And when that somebody else is a superhero, that makes it even better.
Yeah.
There are downsides to that. There are very specific cosplays that a lot of times you can count on them to be problematic. Deadpool being one of those, because a lot of the guys that cosplay Deadpool try to get way into the character.
Yeah.
And I've seen that go south a lot. But I think it's a great thing when people can latch on to something that they believe allows them to kind of come out of their shell and be that stronger person and that more expressive person, because they're not being them anymore. And they can step into that and embody that and kind of become that character. And my wife is a great example of that. She's normally a very laid back and relatively introverted person, but one of her favorite cosplays is Bellatrix Lestrange from Harry Potter. And when she puts that get up on, she becomes a crazy witch from Azkaban.
Yeah.
And so it allows her to kind of step out.
Well, I think, though, I would push a little bit on what you said, in that sometimes I think it is a facet of that person. Like it sort of empowers them to display an aspect of their personality that they often have to have suppressed to some degree. Because I was one of the normies, I guess, but I was closet not. I've always been a nerd, and I'm open with being into nerddom, but I wasn't at the point where I would cosplay.
Right. And
then I kind of got not tricked into it, but it was more of a challenge to do this Budget Batman thing, and that's my cosplay. So I goes, and then Budget Batman's, and then I became a whole character of Budget Batman. I stay in the character when I'm in the outfit. And it's a lot of fun, but Budget Batman is me. You know what I mean? Like it's an acceleration of my personality. Anyway, I think my position now on the cosplay thing, and the other thing too is Josh and I, if you know, I assume you'll know him like I know him. Y'all have known each other a while. Josh's personality is less reserved on certain things than mine is, whereas I may have the same opinion he has. I might not quite be as vocal about it as he is. And when I say that is, our family was raised, this is going to sound bad, but we will make fun of things, but not to make fun of them. It's more almost a sign of appreciation because we make fun of each other. It's, if I like you, I'm going to pick at you type thing. And so prior to the Budget Batman thing, we would poke fun at the furries or the this or that, something that even we kind of struggled with. It was different than norm. But my point was, as I've evolved, I guess, as myself in getting into this, especially hosting the Covington Comic-Con, it's awesome to see people that I think in normal life struggle to get to be themselves or be open and have fun and have a place to be free. And so I really like seeing everybody's cosplays. And then some of these folks put so much effort and talent into the costumes. It's very impressive. So anyway, I feel kind of bad that I was sort of on the negative spectrum there with it. But now I'm very positive. I think everybody should cosplay. I mean, I think adults at Halloween should dress up when they take the kids trick-or-treat. It's great fun. There's nothing wrong with that, being an adult wanting to get out there and let your freak flag fly a little bit.
I think that everybody should find that thing that allows them to express themselves. And if it's cosplay, then more power to you. If you're not comfortable with that, then find that thing that you are. I've spent most of my time going to cons. We've been going to cons for probably 10, 15 years now. And I spend most of my time at cons behind the camera. I kind of started becoming known for my cosplay photography, and we would go to events specifically for me to take pictures and for the wife to go and play and do her thing. And it got to be one of those things where I've had cons reach out to me and say, hey, we'll give you a media pass if you want to come and take some pictures and stuff. And so much like Josh does with the cosplay videos, I started doing a lot of that and having a lot of fun with it. And it allowed me to connect with a lot of the cosplayers on a very personal level. There's something so cool about taking a picture of somebody who is in that representation of what makes them feel stronger or more powerful, and I take a picture of them that suddenly becomes their profile picture. They take something that I created and they allow that to express who they are to the world, which is super cool.
Well, that's a nice perspective on it, because I know, so I was a pro MMA fighter years ago, and in that, back in the day, there would be photographers taking photos of you. And I actually still use, in this building, there's a big blow up, or actually I think it's in one of my schools now, a great photo that this one photographer caught of me in a fight kicking out a guy. And it was great. Like, I've used it for years. Well, she sent me a letter at one point and was not pleased that I was using the photo. And I did give her the credit in the beginning, but I'll be honest, I was using it a lot. But I think that's a good perspective, that you see that, oh man, they appreciate what you did. And, they sort of live through your creation.
Right.
So I think that's great that you have that perspective on it. So on the photography, You say you like doing the cosplay stuff. You do, I assume, other photography too, or primarily cosplay?
Well, it's kind of evolved into mostly doing cosplay. I do a lot of other types of photography as it comes up. I don't spend a whole lot of time with it, not near as much as I would like to, but I do some pinup photography. I do some landscape photography. I enjoy doing street photography sometimes, where I just go around, if I'm in Nashville or something, I'll walk around on Broadway with the camera and just take pictures of people that are out on the street and that kind of thing. And so I'll take a picture of anything that will allow me to take a picture of it, essentially.
Gotcha.
And but cosplayers, to me, are one of those fields where there's a lot of appreciation for what I do, because you can go and you can get somebody to take a cell phone picture standing in front of the event sign or something, but getting a picture that really makes you look like a superhero a lot of times is hard to do, because in this digital age that we live in, where everybody's got a camera on their phone or everybody owns a digital camera, there's a lot of people that think that just because you have good equipment, that makes you a photographer. And I say it all the time. There is no substitute for the eye that goes with being a good photographer. You can have the most expensive camera out there and have no idea how to take a good picture with it. But if you have the ability to take a picture that really lets that person shine, then you've managed to create something. And that's kind of where I've fallen when it comes to that, is I've got a lot of people that very specifically like my photography style when it comes to doing their cosplay photos.
You mentioned the pinup photography. Did you see recently, I don't know what artist it was, but this photographer did a series where he recreated like 40s military pinups where they were on the planes. Like he had them in the outfits, the girls in the outfits on the planes.
Like sitting on the wing of the
plane.
plane.
Yeah.
In fact, I was looking at a picture like that just either today or yesterday that I thought was really cool. And it took me a minute of looking at it to see exactly what was going on. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think I guess because I'm getting old, I like some of the, who was it? May have been your wife I was talking to. Maybe we were talking about that. The pinup stuff, and then the, what is the other photography that's similar to that? It's not nudity, but
Boudoir?
Hints at nudity.
So you've got boudoir photography.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking
of. Is kind of a tamed down version of erotica.
Yeah.
You've got a kind of a spectrum when it comes to photography. You've got your pornography, you've got your erotica, you've got your boudoir, you've got your pinup. And and things like that.
My point was, I think that as a society, we're so rushed to we want everything right now, including those kind of things. Like there's no romance, there's no build up, there's no excitement up. It's like, let me just see it all. You know what I mean? And like, I think that I appreciate more some of those subtleties, like Hitchcock, even with horror. You know, there was a hint at something grotesque maybe, but you didn't actually see what it was. And I think that takes a more evolved, a more mature brain to appreciate than just, oh, look, you get to see whatever. You know what I mean?
But Hitchcock was a master at both of those. He was a master of taking horror and putting it like right there on the edge. But also when it came to his more erotic content, for example, the shower scene in Psycho.
Yeah,
you saw just enough to understand what was going on and to go, ooh, are we going to get to see more? But he wouldn't go over that line. And that's a true art, to be able to kind of titillate the viewer with that, whether it is looking at a pretty girl or looking at something scary.
Yeah.
And he could do both.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a missed art now, and I think maybe, I guess as I get older, that it's because older guys appreciate it, but younger guys drive the market. So I don't know. You guys and gals, I think both, but interesting. So talking about art, another thing that he said you were into, and I didn't know this from the last time we talked. And actually, I saw, I guess, on your post, you're in a band or were in a band. Okay. Well, so what kind of music was it? What did you play or sing, or what were you doing with it?
So the band was called the Murdering Crows. We considered our style Delta Gothic. So it was a retro type sound that was very much influenced by Delta blues and Southern Gothic music and retro rock and things like that. I was the bass player. I played upright bass, and the wife was the singer in the band. We had a guitar player and a drummer. So it was just a 4-piece unit, and we were together for about 5, maybe 6 years. And we recorded an album that is available out there on the iTunes and the other places where you get music. But we recently kind of brought it to an end, which was sad because we were really starting to, I think, get some good momentum. We would do a show, and then somebody would approach us by the end of the show and say, hey, we've got this festival coming up next year. Would you guys be interested? So we started booking some relatively big events toward the end, and then we just had to kind of cut it off and not do a couple things that we really wanted to do. But
how long have you played bass?
Wow. I started playing probably around the end of high school, and played off and on.
You play the regular bass or just the
played
upright? Both of them?
But for the band, mostly I played upright just because it kind of lent a little bit more toward the music that we were doing.
How does that... my son is playing bass. He's been playing, working on a year, and he's in the NA, the band. My other son is one of the lead singers there and plays guitar and multiple instruments. But my youngest son, Jude, just picked up the bass, started playing. For Christmas, no, what was it? For his birthday, we got him a new fancy bass, like a 5-string. But I was curious. Also, my partner, Brian, his brother who passed away this year, Aaron, got the tattoo about Aaron. See, it's a bass head. He played bass. But I was curious, how does the transition from the regular... what do you call it? The regular bass?
I refer to it as a slab.
Slab versus the upright bass.
It's a very different instrument. For one, when you're playing a slab, you've got it strapped over your shoulder, and it kind of just stays in one place. When you're playing an upright, it's suspended by the same hands that are doing other things on it, and you got it kind of leaned into your body a little bit, but you're still holding it up with your left hand while you're playing, and you're still kind of holding some things in place with your right hand. So it's kind of a juggling act, but also there are no frets on it, and you kind of have to figure out where you're supposed to be, and the fret positions on the upright are spaced out a lot more than they are on a standard.
Does the left hand pluck or press?
The left hand, well, I mean, since I'm right-handed, my left hand handles the fretboard, and then the right hand plucks the strings.
I just didn't, because I'm stupid. I didn't know if maybe this one plucked and this one plucked, or if it was like with the slab bass where this is depressing the frets.
It's that works essentially the same way. It's a different position, and it can be awkward sometimes trying to go back and forth between the two. But it's doable for most people. I mean, if I can do it, I think pretty much any bass player can, because I'm not that great. But it's a fun instrument to play, and it's more visually dynamic. I never had anybody approach me at a show and just come straight to me and talk to me after doing a performance until the first time I brought in my upright, and then all of a sudden everybody was my friend.
Yeah.
So everybody has questions.
It's a cool
about
instrument.
Yeah, it really is.
It's kind of like a saxophone. Both of them are kind of cool.
The downside to it is that if I don't stay with it, there's always somebody messing with it. I don't know what it is about an upright bass. When you set it down, somebody is going to come up and start messing with it. It's like a pregnant woman's belly. If for some reason everybody thinks they can touch it. And the same thing with this. I was doing a show one time, and somebody's kids came up into the stage area, and 2 of them walked over and just started grabbing my strings in the middle of playing a song. I'm like, well, come get your kids. But it really is weird that when you play an instrument like that, so many people feel like it just gives them the right to walk up and talk and touch it. And I've had people pick up my instrument and start playing it when I walked away from the stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to really get on to somebody one time, because I walked over, and this kid who's probably 11 years old had my instrument up off the stage and was like hitting on the strings. And I'm like, dude, you don't ever touch someone else's instrument without asking. I mean, that's a good rule to live by anyway.
Yeah, especially in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was thinking about in the martial arts stuff, I've done demonstrations, and same thing with weapons, where I'll have some nunchucks or a sword or something, and you got to
Like
watch.
this?
You got to watch that stuff. Yeah, and I mean these are weapons, and they're coming up, and act like it's a toy. But yeah, no, I get it on the instruments. I couldn't imagine. So on another thing that sort of is art that I sort of wanted to get into at some detail with you is you being a detective. Mm-hmm. And how long were you a detective?
16 years.
So was it like homicide specialty or just everything? Or?
So the department that I worked for didn't have specific divisions, so we didn't have a homicide division because we didn't have enough homicides to really warrant that.
Well, that
so
good.
Everybody kind of worked whatever cases came along. Now, my specialty was I did fraud, child exploitation, and digital forensics. So I did computer forensics and cell phone, and call it cell phone forensics. Not really forensics when you're doing cell phones, but so I handled both of those.
Yeah.
That was
you
my
said
specialty.
16 years. Were you a detective the whole time, or did you start patrol?
No, I was a police officer for 26 years. 16 of it was as a detective.
Okay. All same agency?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sweet. Well, you don't have to say where it was. Was it Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay. So I was 12 total years a patrol deputy. I did apply like 4 or 5 years in to go to the CID division, and I was on SWAT and stuff, and they made excuses on why they didn't want me to be a detective. Hindsight, I don't know that I would have enjoyed it. I think it would have made me better eventually as a lawyer earlier on, because we really go more head-to-head, especially for trial work, with the detectives than we do with the patrol officers. The patrol officers we will in sessions court and stuff, but really it's detective work that we tear down as defense lawyers. So let me ask you this, because you did it a lot longer than I did, and I was very jaded. I was very biased to the state and felt that, like, honestly, it was almost like I had to decompress from that bias to get on this side. I really struggled with working defense work in the beginning. Didn't want to do it. Got it because the judges will appoint you cases, and you can sort of say no, but it's bad. It's really bad to say no if you're going to stay in that jurisdiction. You want that judge to like you. So they would appoint me cases, and I was like, great. And I've got to do a good job. It's my duty. And then I was good at it, but I was very biased that the state was right in the beginning because I'd been a cop so long. Did you feel at the time like maybe, and some don't, but did you ever feel any bias? And then now that you're retired from that, do you see it any different at all?
I don't know that I really changed my opinion on it since retiring, because I was always one of those people that I tried to keep an open mind about the possibility of things being done wrong. For example, the idea of cops backing each other up no matter what they do. And to me, that is, I don't want to say patently false. I'm saying on a scale, it happens a lot less than people want to believe that it does. But
I agree with that.
More cops are of a position where if they see their partner messing up really bad to the point that it's going to be a problem for all of us, we will call them out on it. So I think that I was always one of those people that kind of watched just to make sure that things weren't getting out of control. And I, of course, watched cases where clearly somebody was going down the wrong rabbit hole to get their case done. And a lot of times it would reverse itself and they would realize that they had the wrong direction going on it. Like, for example, I had a case that I worked one time where it was a person that was going to churches, and they would go through the offices and steal out of purses from the employees. And, nobody wants to think that anything like that even happens. And I got a lead on a suspect who was at a location where one of these stolen purses was recovered. And one of my bosses really wanted me to go ahead and charge this person. I was like, something's not right with it. Doesn't feel right. I don't want to move on this just yet. Give me a little bit more time with it. Sure enough, that was not the person that had committed the crime. They just happened to be into the same kinds of crime and happened to cross paths at a singular location with someone else that was doing that kind of thing. And fortunately, I didn't charge that person with that based on that one piece of evidence. I had to wait till I got just a little bit more. And when I got a little bit more, it turned out to be somebody totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess let me clarify what I mean on the bias, because after you responding that way, it makes me think that sometimes when I say it, cops especially think that I'm focused on like corruption or something. In all the years I was law enforcement, and even now where I still kind of work with them, I know them all, see them all the time. Today, there were 3 deputies I saw that I worked with when I was a deputy in court. You know, they're bailiffs now. Anyway, I think the vast majority of law enforcement officers are trying to do a good job. I don't think they're out there targeting people based on race or socioeconomic class or any of that. I think they're generally trying to do a good job. What I'm saying is sometimes there are cases where the client may actually be innocent, and instead of doing what you just mentioned, where maybe let's turn this extra rock over a little bit, let's just see, just because they're, you know, maybe they say they're in the area or they got some proof that this person fits the description of whatever, but, you know, hell, they got 1,000 other people that might fit the description. They focus on this one person. And when they, especially patrol officers that really kind of have some discretion, you know, just as an example, DUI. You know, they think, oh yeah, smell over intoxicant. He even says he had something to drink or whatever. But they're not sure, and they know that more likely in court there's really not enough evidence for a conviction, but yet they're going to lock them up anyway when they could have let somebody pick them up, or they could have, you know, give them a ride home themselves. There's options they have while they're on the street, and then they just choose not. And so when I say, I guess bias may not be the right word, I think often that's like the path of least resistance. But they don't think about the ripple effects that decision has on the family of this person that's arrested and accused of a crime now. This person may not have the money to even hire a lawyer. It's just literally a ripple effect that spreads and affects so many other people. So not that they shouldn't arrest people, but, you know, maybe like you just mentioned, do a little more due diligence just to make sure. Just because you got probable cause, does that really mean that this is the right move to do to lock somebody up? So that's the struggle that I have. And I know that in my department, and you can speak to yours, they didn't have quotas, but you were promoted based on performance, based on SIAs. And so the self-initiated activities were arrests, traffic stops, citations, warrants you served, which is all activity, still sort of a quota.
Right.
So,
and yeah, you're always going to have your guys that just live for the job, and they want to lock up as many people as they can. They want to get as many tickets as they can, and to me, it starts to squash ethics a little bit when you're so focused on trying to be that high performer so that you can be noticed, that it does lend itself to making probably less than good judgment in certain situations. But I will also say that, you know, you're talking about a ripple effect. Let's look at the butterfly effect of decisions like what you're talking about. So I just pulled somebody over for what I suspect to be drinking and driving. I get them pulled over. I'm smelling alcohol coming from that person. So I know there's been some drinking going on. And so we get out, we do a little test, and maybe they don't just blow the whole test, but they make a couple of mistakes. Yes, I do have the option to call somebody to come and get them. The problem is that we've also seen that go south way too many times. So if I make a decision that I'm going to allow a family member to come and get them, then that person goes home, somebody comes and gets their car for them and drives it to the house. They go home, they have another beer, then they get in that car and they go out, and then they kill somebody as a result of that action. So whereas I could have gone ahead and put them in jail, let them go through the legal process, instead I put someone back out on the street that just went out and harmed someone else. And now my credibility is on the line, my conscience is on the line, and my department's looking at me going, what did you do? So there's two sides to that issue. There are easy ways to do it. And if we could count on people to just go home and sleep it off, that'd be great. But we all know that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. There's definitely a ripple effect on both sides. But I guess my counter to that would be, you know, Blackstone once said that I would rather have 100 guilty men walk free than one innocent man convicted. And the system, and I know I have bias on this side now too. I like to try to think I'm in the middle, but I'm sure I have bias on this side because I do see this side's effects so often. I literally had a client today in court, and we ended up entering a plea to a felony offense, okay? And it was a domestic issue. And honestly, I believe the guy. I don't think he did anything to this girl. I really don't. I think that she was trying to get out of the relationship. This was a method of doing it. She managed to get distance from him. But because of her statements to the state refused to come off of the charge. And because of the risk at what he was facing, if we went to trial and lost, we worked out a plea arrangement that he decided was in his best interest. And honestly, we had even told him that we would take it to trial for free, because that's how much I felt that I didn't want an innocent person to plea, but there's such a big risk. And what was interesting that's relevant to what we're talking about is I was talking with him and his father outside of the courtroom. And again, I was sort of saying how, it's interesting that they were law-abiding citizens, God-fearing, loving the Constitution, police supporters, but then all of a sudden they see how it applies to them, and that the system is not perfect. It's flawed. And I'm not saying that I judge cops for doing their job and lock people up. I did it. My point is, when you're on the side of the road on a traffic stop as a law enforcement officer, you have the power. As most people are complying, and it's different. If they're bucking up, you're going to do what you got to do anyway. But if you've got somebody that's complied, he's done what you've asked him to do, and you're not sure, well, if you're not sure, a jury's not going to be sure. So there could be another option there besides let's just lock them up and let the system do what it does. Technically, yes, cops only have to have probable cause to lock somebody up. But hindsight, now with the experience I've had as a defense lawyer, there are a lot of arrests I would have handled differently now. But again, that could be biased on this side too. I don't know.
I think that everybody that has ever been in law enforcement can revisit something that they did in their career and think, I probably could have done that a little bit differently. But to address your comment about the Blackstone quote, I hate to sound like a monster, but I disagree with the quote. And the reason I disagree with that is that while I hate the idea of an innocent person going to jail, we do have a very imperfect system. And until we have a perfect system, we have to accept that mistakes are going to be made. Innocent people don't tend to reoffend. So if I've got a bunch of people that are being released because there are holes in the system that are designed to keep this one innocent person from going to jail, now we've got thousands of people that are guilty back out on the street. And my experience working the cases that I worked is that those people don't go back and go, oh, my bad, I'm going to be a better person now. They go back out on the street and they do the same thing. And you, as a lawyer who handles DUIs, if you're going to be honest with yourself, you have to know that that guy that drives drunk once has a lot of potential to do it again and again. So, yeah, I hate the concept of somebody that did nothing going to jail. Typically, people that have never done anything wrong don't end up in jail for life for murdering somebody. But are there better ways that we can do things like DUI, for example? Absolutely. I think we are far beyond needing to change up some things in that system as far as how we train our officers, the demands that we put on the officers for how they conduct themselves in the field. The idea of quotas and performance evaluations that are based on how many cases you can develop, those are great examples of things that we could definitely reevaluate and do better. So yeah, I think I think both sides of it can stand to benefit from thinking about some different approaches to it.
Yeah, so, and I appreciate your perspective on things. I always like when people sort of have a different view on things than me, because I view argument the way the Greeks did, or I try to. It's easy to say when when we're being civil here, but I like to say I enjoy argument, and my view on argument, though, is not like, throwing punches and fighting. It's that we discuss our different views, and then one of us may walk away with more information, which would mean maybe we changed our perspective. And to me, that's the winner is really the one that traditionally loses the argument. But anyway, what I was going to say, just a little side note on that, because I understand your perspective. I used to have that perspective, is I view it now as the Constitution is there to protect our rights. And so you made a comment about they may reoffend. My perspective is they didn't offend. They didn't. They're innocent as they sit. And if they get not guilty, or it's null pros or dismissed through anything I did or mistakes on law enforcement, the person was never an offender. I even filed motions in court in trials to prevent the DA from calling the defendant a defendant. because that infers they did something. And the way our system is, if you look at the basis of the Constitution, is to protect the civil liberties and hold the state to the burden. And if the state doesn't carry that burden, that person is innocent. Mm-hmm. And so not frustration, but I guess it is a frustration, is that I agree. I don't want guilty people walking away either. You know, I live in the same community. You know, I mean, I had to defend a guy one time that was a co-defendant that broke in my own car. You know, I don't like that. But at the same time, I've seen enough innocent people accused of things that I don't like the idea of even one. I just couldn't. It just sounds terrible to me to know the person. Just imagine someone close to you accused of something they didn't do, life on the line, reputation ruined, bank account destroyed by the whole system, and they didn't do it, and then they get convicted. Yeah. That's the struggle that I have.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about the innocent person who's been charged reoffending. I like when innocent people reoffend because that just means they're being innocent over again. Okay. So I don't have any problems with them going. My issue is that if we have 1,000 guilty walking free, those 1,000 are probably almost all going to reoffend because for one, they offended in the first place because they chose a path that didn't challenge them. And if we let them get away with it, then they become empowered. I saw it over again. I worked for 4 years on a task force with the Secret Service. And we had one particular case with a identity theft trafficker that lived for it, clearly. And we charged her with a significant load. And it was somebody that I had actually encountered as a result of being a detective on my department before I went to the task force. So I'd already seen this name. Before my 4 years on task force was up, we were looking at this same person again because she had gotten out of jail and then turned around and reoffended again. And I've said over and over again that people that are career criminals, they're not doing it because the job at NASA didn't work out. They're doing it because that's the path they've chosen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I agree with you on that. You know, statistically, we've discussed this before, at least in my own firm, probably 10 to 15% of my clients, and that would be at the high end, are innocent. You know, now there may be a little higher level that are legally innocent, but factually maybe not, you know. But like to be like they did not do it at all, it's probably 10 or 15% or so like that. So, and I also agree that yes, there are repeat offenders, but it brings up a whole nother topic on offenses that are, you know, sort of prohibited by the state, but is there really a victim? Like, for instance, marijuana, you know, we don't have to go into your view on it, but personally, I've never used it. Don't have any plans to use it. If it's at least it's not my thing, right? But I think there's a lot of studies at this point that show that it has not only medicinal benefits, but there are some people that, I mean, their anxiety could benefit from it. And alcohol and tobacco is worse. You know, the cigarettes and alcohol is way worse. I mean, yet we penalize people, get them convicted of felonies and even federal charges for marijuana, you know. And so I struggle with those being, you know, when you have somebody that comes in, they smoke a little weed and not even driving or anything. They're literally just, they smoke some weed for personal use, and then all of a sudden now they're sitting by somebody that's molested children, you know, like I struggle with those kind of crimes. But, you know, that's a whole political thing, so I guess we'll see.
No, I mean, surprisingly enough, I actually share your view on that. I think that marijuana use is one of those things that I have no interest in it, never tried it, don't intend to, but I don't see it as being the big bad that it's always been made out to be.
Yeah.
And it's a complicated subject because, like alcohol, it will impair someone who's behind the wheel. But it also becomes very hard to prove that that's what messed them up while they were behind the wheel. And that's one of the struggles that I have with it ethically and legally, is that if it's not something that you can say they were under the influence of this at that time, if there's not a test to show that, then it becomes problematic. And that's one of the things about doing the blood alcohol tests and breath tests and stuff when it comes to alcohol, is you can show that it was happening as we stand there. But because the marijuana tests can show positive for as long as they can, it makes
they
it
do
really
have some.
hard.
There are some advancements on that. Like I think Colorado has, which was the first to legalize it recreationally. I think they have some way they do the blood test where they get the percentages of what's in there, and there's a certain amount of the metabolite present. I forget what the number is. And then anyway, that's supposed to show impairment, kind of like the .08 on blood alcohol. And then there are some other states kind of copying that, so it's progressing.
Good.
But I don't have a problem with, you shouldn't smoke marijuana and drive around. You shouldn't drink alcohol and drive around. Like, I think that's given. That's a choice you're making, and then there's potential repercussions. I'm more, the issue I have is if I'm sitting in my house and I decided I want to smoke marijuana, I'm a grown man that's decided to do it, and I don't want the government telling me what I can and can't do when it doesn't affect other people directly. Right. If you get a car, drive around, you do, it's different. So, but I don't know. I'm a libertarian. So, I always say this all the time as a joke, but it's kind of true. I want the Republicans to stay out of my bedroom, and I want the Democrats to stay out of my pocket. So that's kind of the way I look at politics in general.
That's a good standard.
Yeah. So Darrell, we've been going for a good minute. I enjoyed talking with you. Is there tell everybody if they wanted to find you or how to follow your stuff, what you got going on, where they can.
So my photography and video is on. It's at Toy Robot Visual Arts. You can find my YouTube channel. You can find me on Instagram and I think on TikTok, but I have very little success on TikTok. And I have a moderately successful YouTube channel called Dad Budget Adventures that focuses on disaster preparation, survival, and outdoors and such. And it has a companion TikTok that is equally frustrating. But you can find me on either one of those. So.
Nice. Well, I didn't know you were into that. We could talk about that stuff because
That's another show right there.
I've got a go bag. I just put it together a few weeks ago. I have an interesting view, though, on the whole disaster prep. I'll tell you this, and then I'll shut up unless you got some feedback on it. I was in the gym. This has been several years ago, and there was a guy in there who's a big prepper, like big. And everybody he met, he wanted to talk about prepping. Yeah. So I'm trying to lift weights and stuff, and he's a little annoying. He comes up and he just keeps on wanting to know what I was doing to get ready, that he's got the hydroponics and he's got solar power, all this stuff, right? He's got the water in the cans and the ammunition and medicine, all these things at his house. And he goes, he was acting like I was an idiot because I didn't have any of that ready. And I'm lifting the weights. Now, keep in mind, at the time, I think I had just had a pro fight. I was SWAT guy, had all the guns, all this martial arts training and everything. And he goes, so, what, you're not doing any preparation? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to come take your shit. And he goes, he hadn't thought about that. That, maybe now. I'm like, I don't need to have it. I'm going to come get yours.
I mean, that in itself is a strategy that some of them take. But yeah, he is everything that's wrong with that entire community. I consider myself a disaster preparedness guy.
Okay, gotcha.
Not a doomsday prepper.
Okay, cool.
I think there's a very wide spectrum and there's a large gap between the two.
Yeah, yeah.
And my thing is to be ready to take care of me and my family for the time that it's going to take for things to kick back in. Because honestly, if the world comes to an end, if shit hits the fan and everything falls apart, all bets are off anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't think that a whole lot of people are going to want to live in that environment. And unless you've got a nice bunker in the ground with about 10 years worth of food in it, none of it's really going to matter anyway.
Yeah. Where do you live? City?
In Bartlett.
Bartlett. So we were talking, my partner and I have talked about this some because we live here. I live in the city. I live literally right off the square, which if something bad happened would be, the metropolitan areas, I think, would be one of the first that's going to be really dangerous. You got some fallout there you got to survive through. Now, he lives out in the county pretty far and does kind of have his own little commune set up. So I would just need to make my way out that way. He's got solar power and he does have hydroponics and they got cattle and farm and the whole deal. So that's where I would make. I told him that I would go get medicine first, and I've got guns and stuff and ammo. And then after a few weeks, you can go back and pick up whatever you want because,
Well, my advice to people with that perspective is have something to bring with you.
Yeah.
Because the concept of showing up at your friend's house that has done all the work, it's not going to fly in a disaster. So if you didn't bring something with you, it's like showing up for Thanksgiving dinner with nothing in tow.
I agree. So, I agree. He's kind of my brother. He's almost like Josh and Justin over here. So I think he would be okay. Plus, he knows that I can go take the stuff if needed, and it's not necessarily his wheelhouse. So I think we would be all right. But anyway, that's an interesting conversation. We can have another day on it.
Absolutely.
Well, Darrell, I enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for being on the show with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank everybody for watching. As always, we try to be here on every Tuesday with a new guest, some new information for you guys. If you haven't, please like, follow, subscribe to content. I say that all the time, but it does really help when you guys go. It helps other people find the content, and then it sort of shows some value in what we're doing. We do have a TikTok, and although I don't have the followers on YouTube, I actually have TikTok. So for whatever reason, mostly because people want to make fun of my hair. Yes. I enjoy that part. NA the band, Inside My Head, I was talking about them a little bit on here today. They've got the album Inside My Head. It's available for free wherever you listen to music, so please give those guys a listen. Michelle Allen is a longtime sponsor of our show. She's a Cry-Like realtor in the area. She's also big on the Chamber of Commerce, other local events. We really enjoy Michelle, so give her a holler. Mason's High Octane Martial Arts has been in Covington since 1993. We just opened a second location in Millington. We have some Christmas specials working now, so feel free to visit masonsmartialarts.com. We can get you more information. And then the new business I'm doing is Jam Books and Records. Hopefully it'll be open on Black Friday. That's what we're projecting, so we'll see how that works. But got lots of books and records, new and used, but mostly new actually, so check us out. And then Masonite Digital Marketing. Anytime you're getting married, and you're especially if you're marrying a man and you're a man, Josh especially is going to help you with masonitemarketing.com. So check that out.
Whatever, as long as you pay me. I don't care.
Yeah. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a good week. Keep kicking. Thanks for watching, guys. Just remember that this is not legal advice or investment advice or business advice. This is for fun and entertainment purposes only.